After Chelsea's win early Sunday afternoon, Mauricio Pochettino's men were again asked to respond, and boy did they, with a 2-0 outclassing of North London rivals Arsenal. We discuss that win and preview West Ham United's cup final to come in this week's e-Spurs podcast.
Come on, you Spurs! 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 Tottenham!
Hi guys, welcome back for another hour of talking all things Tottenham Hotspur. Please don't forget you can subscribe to the show via iTunes or Acast and get every brand new episode direct as it's released. You can of course follow us across all the usual social media platforms. We're on Twitter and Instagram at e_Spurs. We're on Facebook, facebook.com/e-Spurs page. We're also on YouTube, Pinterest and Tumblr. And for all the links to all e-Spurs platforms, you can head to our brand new website of www.e-Spurs.com. On the e-Spurs podcast tonight, we'll be discussing that 2-0 win over Arsenal in the North London derby. We'll be taking your questions for our panel as always, and we'll be previewing West Ham United's cup final to come this coming Friday. What a game that's going to be in this title race. But before we talk all things Tottenham Hotspur tonight, let's introduce the panel talking us through the next hour. I'm pleased to say we've got a winner of BBC's Apprentice and founder of Raw Talent Academy and huge Spurs fan, Lee Mcqueen, joining us. Lee, how are you?
Evening, Ricky, boys. How are you all?
Oh, I think we're just getting over yesterday. What a game. I'm also pleased to say back on the show, rejoining us, we've got freelance football writer, mainly for 442, Seb Stafford-Bloor joining us. Seb, how are you?
I'm doing good, Ricky. Thanks for having me back.
I'm pleased to say we've got Jason back on the show. Jace, how are you?
Voice is a bit strained today, mate, but I seem to be in a good mood today. I don't know why.
Yeah, I wonder why. And I'm pleased to say we've got Ian back with us. Ian, how are you?
Yeah, evening, Rick. Evening, guys.
Boys, how are we all feeling? Jace, are you alright?
Excellent win, a thoroughly dominant performance, of which 2-0 flattered that lot, in fairness. I mean, had it been for Peter Cech, who's probably the only one of their players that comes out with any credit. I mean, it could have been 4 or 5, couldn't it? 2 horrendous misses in that first half from Delhi and particularly the Ericsson one, and you hoped that wouldn't come back to haunt us, but that little 2-minute spell just took the game away from them, and from that moment on you couldn't see any way back for them, and if anything, as I say, it could have been 4 or 5 at the end of the game.
It really could have been. Bringing you in, Lee, it's 9 straight Premier League wins, 13 straight home wins at White Hart Lane. Tottenham Hotspur playing under pressure is a joy to watch at the moment, isn't it?
We've been brilliant this season. We was brilliant last season, weren't we, lads, to be fair?
Yeah.
I see a stat the other day, I think top of the table over a 2-season period by 12 points. It's just a little bit frustrating, to say the least, that we're up against it with a 4-point gap with Chelsea, and they put in a performance. I think it was all fingers and toes crossed that Everton were going to come and do something and give us a helping hand. And to be fair, Chelsea blew them away. So, we're playing fantastic football. It's a joy to watch down at the lane. With a new stadium coming, with a training, it's amazing me actually that people just. They're watching us, even people that don't normally like Tottenham, and they like Tottenham, and it's a credit to Pochettino. I think he's done an amazing job down there.
He really, really has. I'm bringing it to you, Ian. Like Lee says there, we're getting credit from all quarters at the moment, and fair play, because as Lee just said there, with Chelsea's result earlier, our heads could have dropped, but if anything, it seemed to spur us on even more. What did you make of that performance?
I think we've said it already tonight. It was dominant. From start to finish, and apart from Lloris having to tip a Ramsey shot round the corner in the first half, and then a couple of little shots in the second half, I don't recall us keeping that other lot as quiet as we did. Totally dominant, and I think we were better than them in all positions, apart from the goalkeeper, and that's not a slight against Lloris, who genuinely, apart from those 2 or 3 things, had nothing to do. Whereas, as Jason has said, Petr Cech was by far the busier of the 2 keeper, and wasn't it nice to see?
It really was. And bring it to you, Seb. I think our dominance sums up that Toby Alderweireld and Jan Vertonghen had more shots on target than the entire Arsenal team. What did you make of the actual performance itself yesterday? Was you impressed by that?
It was cathartic, because it was like watching what we used to have done to us. at the Emirates.
As in 2 quick
and I think
goals
United
and fall behind.
The 2 quick goals, yeah, but also the kind of like the surrender. We didn't even have to play quite well, and we steamrolled them. Which is, I think, perfectly true. I mean, I think we played pretty well. But they were so meek and so. I've heard them described actually this morning in the papers as lost, and I think that's a really perfect description. They didn't really seem to know why they were there. They didn't really have any kind of objective beyond sort of passing the ball around quite neatly and hoping that eventually, if they played reasonably well, that we might into the back of our own net. And it was kind of, it was just so dominant. I think that's the thing. I think it's satisfaction, obviously relief because of the history, because it's been an awfully long time.
Too long, isn't it? Too long.
Yeah, but I mean, it was everything I hoped it was going to be. Basically, just conclusive, no shitty little late goal to make it 2-1 and to preserve some kind of false dignity, nothing like that. And it was just it was conclusive.
It's a mark, isn't it, guys, of where we've come, even from last season. I mean, I love the way Pochettino, his mentality, us as fans, and we go down and we love the fact that we're finishing above Arsenal first time in 20 odd years or whatever it is. But he just kind of discards that and sort of says, you know what, like, it's not about Arsenal, it's about trying to win the title. This time last year, we could have come unstuck. In actual fact, when we played Arsenal last year at home, we were in full control, lads, weren't we? Complete control of the game, down to 10 men, and we end up drawing the game. So even from last season, the improvement mentally that we've had as a team, as a unit, I think it's been, I think it's there for everybody to see.
And like you just said there, Lee, I mean, it does show, if you would agree, that there's definitely a maturity about this team now. We saw last year the failure at West Brom where we kind of let the season slip away, but there seems to be more of a determination in there that we're not going to give this up easily. Yesterday it was a real convincing win, and I think, like you also said, Lee, we missed 2 gilt-edged chances with Eriksen, Dele Alli, but our heads didn't drop, did it? We knew patiently the goals were going to come. And in the end, I mean, it could have been so many more if it wasn't for Petr Cech.
I don't know if you agree, lads. We've gone behind in games, and Spurs of old would have definitely lost them games. And maybe even at the beginning of this season, we were drawing them games. When you analyse, I suppose I'm sure we'll get onto this later on, but when we analyse the season as a whole so far, we've dropped some points in crucial games, really. But certainly since the turn of the year, when we've gone behind in games, we still haven't felt like that we were not going to take control.
Exactly that.
Yeah. What do you
absolutely right. Yeah, I you know what? I think that's kind of. I mean, even I remember being at the Swansea game and thinking, and watching that game and watching performance which wasn't particularly good, and watching Spurs not really create anything for 85 minutes. And there's still, because of what's gone before, you always think that there's enough perseverance in the team that one of the players will make that last run into the box. They'll take that shot on. One of the fullbacks is going to overlap one more time and create something, even if it's just kind of from a ricochet or something like that. And it's just, I don't know. I mean, I don't know whether some of the performances have justified that faith, but then they always, the faith always gets rewarded in the end. There is always a goal, there's always a comeback, and the statistics for how many points have been recovered from losing positions are amazing, and really difficult for anyone to argue with, because it's sort of, all the old Tottenham qualities and all the old sort of pejorative associations that the club used to get pelted with. It's kind of being flipped on its head now, and that feeds into just what was so satisfying about yesterday.
It really was.
Like a hardening of the team.
So true. I'm bringing it to you, Jace. We have to touch upon it. Eriksen, I mean, for that first goal, for me, it was absolute wizardry, the way he danced himself in the box. Yes, Ali got the goal, but dare I say, that run there from Eriksen, slightly Hodder-esque. I mean, if that was Messi, everyone would be drawing about it for weeks. What are you making of his form at the moment? It's incredible, isn't it?
Every single week we praise him at the moment, and rightly so. And other than the absolute sitter that he missed, it was another excellent performance. And as you said, it was a lovely little run. It was Ali that took the ball into that box originally. Then the little layback for Eriksen, the dancing feet. And Ali's the only one then that's alive to the rebound. And actually, when the ball goes in, quite what Oxlade-Chamberlain was doing, trying to kick it off the line. And you thought, if he'd have kicked it, I think he'd have broke the net with it. I mean, it would have gone flying in, wouldn't it? And I'm almost quite disappointed Ali did score now, and it would have just been left it to Oxlade-Chamberlain, because that could have been one hell of an own goal. Crazy, wasn't it? You think, why is he trying to kick it off with completely the wrong leg? But there you go. And there were some people worried that Oxlade-Chamberlain would give Ben Davies a hard game yesterday, but we didn't see any signs of that, did we?
No, we didn't. And bringing it to you, Ian, Dele Alli, 21st goal of the season for a midfielder who's only in his second season in the Premier League, 21 years old, directly involved in 12 goals in his last 11 games across all competitions. This guy is just a go-to man, isn't he, for us this season?
I think me and a lot of other people in football are running out of superlatives to describe this young man.
Amazing. He's just amazing.
How much did he cost?
Wait, only cost...
Isn't there a song about this? And I'm just trying to think what the song is now. And
only costs £5 million.
Hats off to whoever uncovered that little gem.
There's a few more yesterday as well. But Ian, generally, Dele Alli, I mean, the form he's on, I know it's ridiculous. We have to remind ourselves just how young he is, because the possibility is, not a possibility, it's a definite, he's going to get better, isn't he, as well?
I think I mentioned it on the last pod that I was on. He's slowly becoming one of those players that plays the game in his own sort of pace, and that's a really good trait to have. I think Berbatov used to do it, and King, when he played for us at the back, they used to play the game in their own sort of time frames, and Dele Alli does that. He still manages to work so phenomenally hard for the team. There's no showboating with him. I think he's a real gem of a player, and we're lucky to have him, and let's enjoy him while we can.
The great thing about him is if you slow a game down and watch it and take your eye off the ball, and you can even do it from TV pictures as well, just look how he constantly runs and finds himself in space. He gets between lines, he pulls off the back of defenders, and so often, I mean, if the chance, for instance, that he headed wide, obviously should score. If you go back and look at it, just look at the run where there's 3 or 4 red shirts, but he knows where to run into that space. And even with Eriksen's one, if you look at the Eriksen one again, watch the movement of Ali in the whole build up to that. How there's not a red shirt ever within 5 or 6 yards of him, and yet you know that the other side will be saying, don't give him that space, keep your eye on him, mark him tightly, and yet every time he gets the ball, he seems to have that couple of yards space to turn into, and it's just a phenomenal player.
He's a yard quicker, wasn't he, in looking at that space? Absolutely, you're bang on the money there.
Always seems to be, though, doesn't it? Lily, it always seems to be, doesn't it? Despite whoever he's playing, he just seems to be always one step ahead of the game, doesn't he?
The goal he scored against Chelsea in the FA Cup semi-final, I mean, it was an absolute world-class ball from Eriksen. We'll agree with that. But again, getting in between them the two centre-backs to score where he was as well, just had that little bit, like you say, that little bit of edge to move into spaces. And I wonder as well, I mean, we're giving a lot of credit to Dele Alli, and rightly so, but I wonder how much that's coached as well, lads, because, if you look at the Crystal Palace game, Eriksen did the same thing. He had a look around, he looked at some space when he scored his goal. Before then, he manoeuvred himself into space, had some time to look around both shoulders and then go and hit that ball. And it's finding that space. Spurs players seem to be finding that space. That's why I wonder how much of that is actually on the training ground as well,
Yeah, and it's a great point there, Seb. Bringing it to you, Seb. What do you make of the training ground? Maurizio Pochettino, what he's doing with his side? I mean, he's now the first Spurs manager to go 6 games unbeaten against Arsenal since his reign in 2014. Just how special is this manager we've got?
I think that the proof of it, Ricky, is ignoring like the specifics of yesterday, just how many times this team has been adjusted and tweaked over the last 6 months, and how consistent it's still remained. Like if you watch now, if you compare it to kind of say back in the Redknapp days where Tottenham had one formation and one group of 11 players who all had to play every week, otherwise they wouldn't win. Now you have a side that can shift formations in the middle of games, can shift both fullbacks if they need to. Have had to deal with 3 long-term injuries to key players throughout the season, and yet there's enough coaching now to Pochettino, and there's enough understanding developed on the training pitch whereby it doesn't really make a difference. Like they don't get disrupted by lack of continuity. It's like, I mean, all of you lot would have watched the Palace game, been there and seen the kind of the change in formation which happened after about half an hour, and it was seamless. There was no moment in which he felt particularly uneasy and thought, God, we don't really know what we're supposed to be doing here. It was just like, it was as if it wasn't a match situation and the pressure was off. And it was as easy as just doing on the training ground. And I think that's something really to be admired. And it's allowed us to to be very effective in games. I know we talked a little bit earlier about sort of recovering points from losing situations, and I really believe that's part of it. It's because when a game isn't going as it's supposed to, there can be an adjustment, and we can show an opposition something slightly different, ask a few more different questions, and I think that beyond all like the intangibles, that's kind of what Pochettino has brought as well.
Even in the game yesterday, I think he flitted between a back three or a back five or whatever, and a back four, a 3 and a 4, 3 and a 4. He flitted in between the two or three times during the game, and you just think that is so well coached, and like you say, so drilled into what they should be doing and how they're doing. It doesn't affect them. You can have a Dyer push up into the central midfield alongside Wanyama, or you can drop him back in a 3. When somebody else goes forward, somebody else will come across. And it's so easy to kind of talk about that and say, oh, yeah, that's how it should be. But actually to go out and do it all week in, week out against top-class opposition, albeit not yesterday, then...
Love it.
You know what, Lee? I remember that happening at Palace, where he brought Son and Sissoko on at half-time, and anyone watching that game would have thought, hold on, what's happening here?
What you think?
How does that team have balance with those players on the pitch and Sissoko doing whatever it is that Sissoko does, when he plays? But it worked. And it's sort of actually Sissoko played quite well in the second half of Palace, but the point being that kind of there are so many different solutions to problems, which is such a new thing to be able to say about a Spurs side.
When Mourinho first come into the Premier League and there was all hype about Mourinho and stuff, I remember watching him and reading the press and you watching on telly and that sort of stuff, and everybody talked about he wasn't afraid to make different decisions and bold decisions in games, and sometimes he'd substitute 3 people at the same time. Do you remember that, lads? And he'd do certain different things. And I'm not saying that Pochettino's like that. What I'm saying is that he's almost moved that on even further to be able to do certain things. As an England fan, we crave for different formations in a game to change the game at international level, and never seem to be able to do it. Whereas Pochettino's doing it almost for fun.
Yeah, what we don't want to do is we don't want to link this guy with an England job, Lee, after one we've had before.
Oh no, don't! I don't want to go an England job.
No. Please God, let's keep him for as long as we can. Honestly, he's doing a phenomenal job, like you say, Lee, and the balancing formations is incredible. But bringing it back to the game, Jace, I want to ask you, Harry Kane, 2 minutes after Eriksen's goal, the typical Arsenal capitulation. Number one in your books, Jace, was it a penalty?
I try and be unbiased, but I'm astounded that anyone can even query it, because you see the pictures. He clearly catches him on the bottom of the shin. Whether it's enough to knock a bloke over is irrelevant. Yeah. It's a clear. I mean, we were honest enough last week, weren't we, with the Victor Moses dive to say, yes, it's a dive, but it's still a penalty, because that's what it is. And so I think if we could be gracious enough to accept that the Victor Moses one's a penalty, I can't for the life of me how anyone can possibly see that and argue against it being a penalty. I really can't. But, I mean, the strange thing for me with as you say, it's 2 goals in 2 minutes, but I think they said it was 71 seconds between the ball hitting the net both times, which if you think, you celebrate the first goal, they kick off. Yeah. Don't forget, they kick off, and within, I think it was 11 seconds from the moment they kicked off, that we earned the penalty. And you think, how can a Premier League team or 2 teams at any level, it could be Sunday morning football, can't it? Yeah. How can you kick off and concede a penalty within 11 seconds when you're the team kicking it off? I find that astonishing. I really do.
James, this is echoes of old Spurs, isn't it? We've seen it before with us. I mean, back in the years when we used to concede 1, second, third would go in, and there'd be a capitulation. But it's just it's incredible, isn't it, to think like the way we are going at teams, no fear. It's not about just scoring the once, it's twice, 3 times, trying to get these games knocked down. But Harry Kane's form generally now is the first player to score 5 consecutive Premier League goals in a North London derby. Scored in every game against Arsenal. He scored more goals than Thierry Henry. He's the last ever goal scorer in a North London derby at White Hart Lane. I mean, Kane at the moment, Jace, he always rises in these big games. And that's what you ask your strikers, isn't it?
Well, it's 18 in 20 London derbies, as you say, goals against Chelsea. And even the criticism that he doesn't turn up in the big games and things, you think, well, he scored at Anfield last year. I think there's only Man United is the only team he hasn't scored against.
Yeah.
And, he actually only played 3 of the 6 Champions League games and still scored in 2 of those.
Yeah.
So, I don't quite know what people want him to do. And as you say, it's what, 20 goals 3 seasons in a row. And, I've called him on here often enough, haven't I? The 1 decade wonder. And
Fingers crossed.
You just love his form and love his form.
Fingers crossed the Spurs play for many, many more years to come. And bringing it to you, Ian, another guy we have to mention. Just a little stat out there. Granit Xhaka cost 24 million more than him. Man of the match, Victor Wanyama. Just how good was he yesterday, and how good has he been all season, Ian?
He has been. I would challenge the man of the match. I think that.
Really? Okay.
I think Jan might have just nailed it for me, just by the odd point. But I take your point about Wanyama. I thought he was excellent yesterday. And I think we've all criticised his forward play. When he's good at getting the ball, but sometimes his distribution has been lacking. But yesterday his break-up play and then his forward distribution was times phenomenal. So he's just been a superb acquisition to our squad for this year.
When he won the ball on the edge of our box late on, was about 80 minutes in or something, surged forward, drew a defender to him and then slipped Kane in, and Kane actually had a bit of a heavy touch and probably should have scored the third goal, but that's Wanyama's performance yesterday, that little clip of the game.
Really was. And bring it to you, Seb. Mr. Vertonghen, let's give him a mention. His 200th appearance yesterday for Spurs. He has to be up there, like I think Ian has said, not only man of the match but also another player of the season. He's been exceptional and grown as a leader, hasn't he, this season? I know sometimes he's in Toby's shadow, but this season he really has stepped up, hasn't he?
Yeah, I think also it's funny you mentioned the leader thing, Ricky, because he seems to be playing a bit more aggressively. I mean, he's always, by most accounts, been kind of a vocal person in the dressing room, but his on-pitch demeanour is just a little bit more. I don't know whether it's confidence or the product of playing in a defence which concedes so few goals. I think that manifests in the way he carries the ball up the field, which is kind of like, it's reminiscent of his first season at Spurs, where he had a little bit more licence to carry out through the middle. And you saw what a good footballer he is. I think it's interesting that the measure of his form probably is that even with Alderweireld missing, I want to say 11 or 12 games at the end of 2016, that Vertonghen was absolutely brilliant in that period. Whereas, previously we've always thought of him as the kind of what happens if Alderweireld is not on the side and he has to play alongside someone like, Dyer or previously Fazio or, someone like that, or Yunus Kabul. But he's shown how much he's grown as a player, and it's great to see, because I happily admit it. A couple of years ago, I would have gladly seen him go, because I wasn't really sure that his attitude was right, and the noises he made around kind of his new contract were a little bit irritating. But he's got
his head down. I think whatever happened, I think like we've said about the manager, he seems to have. Everyone seems to have bought into his philosophy, and he seems to have convinced the players that wasn't too sure, Seb, if their future was at Spurs, that this is very much the place to be at the moment, isn't it, Tottenham?
Yeah, exactly that, Ricky, because there's a whole host of players who that applies to, and Vertonghen is obviously one of them. Lloris is definitely another. I don't know whether Christian Eriksen would be where he is now if there had been if he'd spent 2 seasons under Tim Sherwood, for instance.
Well, I don't know if I'd be here, to be honest with you.
I think I'd be at Phoenix Club. Yeah, I'd have started my own club somewhere. It's a measure of how important it is, I guess, that you have. Okay, forget all the coaching and the tactics and the transfers and all that stuff, and you just, in a manager, you have a personality that has a magnetism with these players. I think that's essential, and obviously Pochettino has that.
I wanted to add with Pochettino, I think he's done that well. I agree with what you're saying, but I also think he moved people out of the club that he knew.
Yeah, spot on. Yeah.
What he did, so he weren't going to hang on. And I know we're going to talk about Kyle Walker and that type of stuff in a bit, which I'm a little bit upset about, if I'm honest. But when players come out, like you were just saying a couple of seasons ago with Vertonghen, it is a lot to do with their agents, and they want to try and get new deals and this, that, and that. And that's hopefully what it will be with Kyle Walker, and I say hopefully because he's one of my favourite players actually at Spurs. But I think what with Pochettino, what he doesn't do, he doesn't suffer fools. So in other words, he moves players on very quickly if you don't think that they're going to be bought into what he's trying to do, and that's very Sir Alex Ferguson-esque, I have to say.
I think maybe the best example of that actually is probably Nabil Bentaleb, who that's a really weird situation, because I think we all saw how talented he was, but the moment there was a little bit of nonsense behind the scenes.
Out.
Like,
and the same with Townsend as well, Seb, to be fair. The minute that Townsend had that issue, it was like, gone. I mean, the Aaron Lennon, the Unisca balls, that, again, they will... made their way. Let's bring it on to you, Lee. I just have to say to you at the moment, Spurs, the win above Arsenal obviously means that we are going to finish above them, number one. But number two, barring a 20-goal swing, we have secured Champions League football for a second successive season. I mean, that is some feat, isn't it? Bearing in mind we're still in a title race.
I think it's brilliant, and you know what? As a Spurs fan, all of us, we want to get into, we want to dine at the elite table, don't we? We want to sit at the top and say, look, this scrum is nice, and we want some more of that. A lot of people haven't been talking about this in the media and so on and so forth. We're 4 points behind Chelsea, a team, by the way, they've had no European football this year. We've gone into the Champions League, and now it's not our maiden voyage over there, of course, right? Because we've had Champions League football before. But for most of these players, certainly in the Spurs shirt, it has been, the young squad. We're the youngest squad in the Premier League. To go into the Champions League with that squad, but inexperienced, and, we've got a lot of stick, playing at Wembley and this, that and the other, and we can't win games and so on and so forth. And then to drop into the Europa League and still carry on and still to be in the title race. Again, I know I'm biased, obviously we all are, but I think that's a phenomenal job. It just goes to show you that if we didn't have European football this year, and that's a lot as if buts, would we be top? Would we be winning the league? Because Chelsea, or flip it the other way, if Chelsea have had European football this year, would they be doing as well as they currently are? Well,
I mean, Jace, what do you reckon on that?
I think Chelsea wouldn't have 81 points if they'd have had European football. Whether we might... I mean, if you actually think about it, we haven't had that many bad results at all, have we? Where you could say that was a shocking one on the... If you think the three games we've lost, Man United away, Chelsea away, Liverpool away, two of those I think weren't around the European date. The Chelsea one was, but you could easily go to Stamford Bridge and lose anyway. I mean, you might have turned a couple of those draws. I think we had that little run of draws, didn't we, with Bournemouth and Leicester and West Brom, where we were without Toby and without Kane, and maybe the squad at that stage got stretched. And so if you give those as two wins, it's still actually only 4 points. I mean, we've gone past our points record, for God's sake.
Yeah, I know.
Tonight on 77, and you think, how could we have squeezed out another 5 or 6 points? But I think it's more relevant to say, I don't think Chelsea would be sitting there on 81 points if they'd have had European football this year.
There's a lot of ifs and buts, but that's where we're in it, lads. We're talking all things Spurs, and we're sitting there, another team that are third in the Premier League, no European football this year in terms of Liverpool, unbelievable world-class manager, blah 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 blah, and we're sitting 11 points in front of them, and we're the team that have had the European football twice over, if you like, because obviously the Europa League piece as well. You can see what it does to teams, Man United, being in that. They can't get it. It's almost, they're Spurs-esque, weren't they, like 4 or 5 seasons ago, Man United?
It just bores teams being in the Europa League, I reckon. It's just so tedious as a competition that it just sucks all their spirit. Yeah. No flair left. Yeah.
And, I mean, let's not forget, we've also had more injuries and casualty. Let's be brutally honest. Yeah. It's been ridiculous. It has been a scene from there. Ian, I want to bring it to you. Kieran Trippier. I think a lot of people yesterday, when that team was announced, there was a slight concern. Obviously, Kyle Walker, we're going to come on to that in a second, but firstly, Kieran Trippier. Any doubters he had, has he proved them wrong yesterday? Because I thought he had quite a good game. It's been a mixed reception. What did you make of his game?
Well, I thought he proved everybody he's a decent right back. I love his delivery. I think his delivery is better than Walker's. I think that positionally, he's probably a tad better than Walker. I think Walker is a great player, don't get me wrong, but he often has to rely on his pace to get him out of trouble. And whereas I think Trippier is a bit more of a bit like Davis on the other side. I love Danny Rose to bits, and I can't wait for him to come back. However, Ben Davies has had a fantastic little role in our team of late. When we've needed him, and I think that I've said it before. I don't often think of the first 11. It's the whole squad game, because over the course of a season, and I agree with what Lee said about Chelsea, their lack of European games and the added strain that it puts on players, may well have contributed to them having a pretty injury-free season, going back to Trippier, I think he's a great little player. I think he's combative. He gets up and down that wing. He puts in a wicked cross. I think we saw that a couple of weeks ago. I think it was for the Watford game for Sonny's second. Absolute peach of a cross, and don't often see that from Walker. But there we go. It's a squad game.
Even yesterday, he saw that quick throw in, didn't he?
Yeah,
quick long throw that set. Was it Kane away where we ended up scoring that first goal from? He saw that, and whereas Walker seems to go walking up and down that line. He seems to walk about 15 yards with the ball before he throws it, and you think, but Trippier just picked it up, saw the chance, whacked it in there.
And
Excellent yesterday.
Jace, again, but what are we seeing, Jace? Again, regular run of football, consistent run of games, and we're seeing performances now. Same as Ben Davies. When you're in and out the team, very hard to get any kind of consistency. You need a regular run of games, don't you? No matter what position you're playing, no matter what level you are.
Yeah, of course you do. And, that regular run, it's that quickness of thought, it's doing things instinctively, it's building partnerships on the pitch, which only come through that. And I think, the more players like that come into the team, they get themselves in a run, they perform it, the more the respect of the other players goes up. They don't see them as the weak link anymore. They're not thinking, oh my God, we got Trippier at right back, so I better do this. They think, no, trust him to do that job. And the whole mix has to be right. And those players that are coming in, even with Harry Winks coming in this year, they've all done their role. And Sonny has come in. I mean, Sonny yesterday was excellent again, wasn't he? Certainly for the first hour, he caused Arsenal all sorts of problems. Yeah. And we've seen it. And I kept saying at the start of the year when people say we don't have game changers from the bench, we don't have this, we don't have that. I kept saying to people, calm yourselves down. Look at these players when they do come in, and no, they're not as good as the ones that necessarily start every week, but they are bloody good players. And over the last month or so, I think finally some of those players are getting the credit they deserve.
Yeah, can I just also have a shout out for our captain? Did I read a stat that he now had 15 clean sheets out of 30 games?
Did I read
that right?
Yeah, I think you're right. He's got the most in the Premier League. I mean, bearing in mind yesterday, apart from the Ramsey save, he was a spectator, wasn't he, Ian?
Yeah, I'd agree. And it's interesting, you talk about our back line. I'm just trying to work out, doing some mental arithmetic, which I'm not that great at. But aren't we looking at Arsenal's front three of a combined net value of getting on to 100 million?
Oh.
You look at that, at the combined value of our back five, would have probably paid for Sanchez and a couple of extra players, wouldn't it?
Would do. It is crazy. I mean, at the moment, we've scored the second most goals, 71, conceding the least 22, and have the best goal difference, plus 48 in the Premier League. I mean, dare I say it, I don't think I've ever been on this kind of territory as a Spurs fan. It is pretty incredible. We're going to go for a very, very quick break, and we'll be back literally in 2 minutes.
Hello and welcome to Loan Watch, a weekly update on the players currently on loan from White Hart Lane. As always, I will begin with players on loan at clubs outside of England. In Italy, Federico Fazio has featured twice for Roma since we last spoke. The first match was a 4-1 away win against Pescara, while the second was a disappointing 3-1 home defeat to City rivals Lazio. Roma's derby defeat leaves them 9 points behind leaders Juventus, with only 4 matches left to play. In Germany, Nabil Bentaleb played 84 minutes as Schalke's 4-1 away win over Bayer Leverkusen. With only 3 matches left, Schalke occupy 10th place in the Bundesliga table, but still have a slim chance of finishing in a Europa League spot. In France, Clinton Ng was an unused substitute for Marseille, as they won 5-1 away at Caen. The win keeps Marseille in 6th place in the Ligue 1 table, but with only 3 matches left, Europa League qualification is the best they can hope for. In the MLS, Anton Vakes was not named in the Atlanta United matchday squad for the game against DC United. Moving on to our younger players, who are on loan at clubs throughout all 3 tiers of the English Football League. Saturday afternoon saw Yeovil Town host Stevenage in League 2, a match that could have included 3 of our loanees. Unfortunately, Connor Ogilvie was our only player involved, playing the full game for Stevenage. Ryan Loft was not part of their matchday squad, and Shaun Harrison was an unused substitute for Yeovil. The game ended 1-1, a result which saw Stevenage drop out of the playoff places with only 1 match remaining. Yeovil remain 19th in the table, but cannot be relegated. In the Championship, Will Miller was once again not named in Burton Albion's matchday squad for their game against Barnsley. On Sunday, League 1 came to a conclusion, and Luke McGee made his final appearance for Peterborough United. Unfortunately, the result was not a positive one for Luke, as the Posh lost 3-0 away to Bolton Wanderers, a result which sealed Bolton's promotion to the Championship. Peterborough finished the campaign in 11th place. Sunday also saw Luke Amos make his final appearance for Southend United, coming off the bench for the final 11 minutes of their 1-0 home victory against Bury. Despite the victory, Southend unfortunately missed out on a playoff spot to Millwall and finished the campaign in 7th place. And that's it for this week's edition of Loan Watch. If you would like to get in touch with me on social media, my Twitter handle is coach_Chris83. Come on, you Spurs!
Hi guys, welcome back to the e-Spurs podcast. As always, we ask you to get in touch with us on a weekly basis for anything THSC related. You can do that by tweeting our Twitter account of @e_Spurs, leaving your question with the hashtag eSpursPod. Now, it's fair to say, guys, you've got into us in your droves. Many of them, to be honest, Kyle Walker related, which we're just going to cover off now because there has been an update from today. Kyle Walker, who obviously was left on the bench on Sunday in place of Kieran Trippier. The subject of the matter today is that there has been an article published by the independent, very reliable journalist Jack Pitt-Brooke, who suggests that Kyle Walker's future may lay away from the football club. We're going to go first to you, Lee. I know you were discussing before the break about Kyle Walker's future. What do you make of that? Is that a concern for Spurs?
I've got a slightly different view, to be honest. We play the old fantasy football and that sort of stuff, and we'll get the lads round and every year and whatever. And every year I go big and buy Kyle Walker. For I don't know why. I just buy him. I buy him every year, and they always give me a little jig. Why Kyle Walker? Why? It's really important time in Spurs' development that we keep our team together and our squad together. And although that's maybe a bit of a contradiction in terms of what I said earlier about Pochettino moving people on quite quickly if they're not up for it, I do think it's quite important that we're going to try and keep like the likes of Walker in the squad. Yeah. The last thing I would want is for him to go, and I agree, Ian and Jason, with what you're saying around Kieran Trippier. I think he's a better crosser of the ball as well and all that sort of stuff. I do, but then it's who's going to come in and fill them gaps, and all of a sudden Walker leaves, and then does somebody else start to go? Oh, actually, maybe my future's away, and then do you know what I mean? And then all of a sudden it starts to break up, and we ain't done anything yet, lads. Like, I don't want to be negative, but we are brilliant. We have been fantastic at actually not achieving any trophies yet. And I watched the Henry interview with Kane this week, and Kane was pretty strong, saying, I'll be very, very disappointed if I don't win any trophies in the next 3 years. I think he said we, not I. But again, there's that classic, because we've all been through it, right? We're a selling squad, and the Real Madrids or Barcelona start coming in. See you out of Modric, see you out of Berbatov, see you out of Carrick, see you out of Bale. You know what I mean? Bye Van der Vaart. I don't think we're there, right? But what I'm saying is, all of a sudden, when somebody quite pivotal and quite big in the dressing room and quite at that club, like a Kyle Walker, all of a sudden goes, it maybe opens a door for other people. And I don't know, I just feel a bit wary of that, lads. You know what I mean?
I think there was a reasoning behind him missing some of those Champions League games. But I mean, it's strange that he's missed the last two, I have to say. I thought he would have played last week, and I thought he would have played on Saturday. And he's still the better defender than me, than Trippier. But I mean, if the rumours are right, then it can only be a money motivation that wants to take him there. And it is a disappointment that the bloke signed a contract just 6 months ago. But if there is rumours to it, I just hope we do it quickly, and we say to Manchester City, if they're the club that want him and they paid 50 million for John Stones, you say to Manchester City, look, the price is 50 million, don't come back, don't start arguing about fees, it's going to cost you 50 million quid, give us your cheque, you can have the player, and just get it done quickly without it dragging on and on and on all summer. And you can say to his agent, look, we're not stopping Kyle Walker leaving at all. We've told Manchester City how much he owes, how much they owe us for him. Go and sort the deal out with Manchester City, and your player can go. And let's just get it done with before they all come back for pre-season training and things like that, if indeed it does happen. But as we said, we want him to stay, and we don't want our best players leaving.
No, we don't want to set that trend. And Ian, finally to you, your take on the situation. I mean, like I've said, it is a fairly reliable source. So, and in the basis of what we've seen the last few weeks, it'd be hard to doubt there isn't some kind of issue at the moment.
Well, yeah, and I think that if the source is an impeccable one, and it's one that carries some weight within football journalism, then we have to accept that there may be some substance in it. Now, if that is what Carl wants to do, and his agent is angling for a move away, then I think that we've seen with other players that no one is greater than the club, and we owe it to Pochettino and the rest of the team, not to be held to ransom. And if Carl goes, then it'll be a shame, and we'll miss him. Other players have gone before, and the club survives. So it's as Jason said, let's do it early, and let's plan for next season.
Yeah, agree. Let's get some other questions. Let's not make it too Carl Walker related. Let's go to you, Lee. We've got a question here from John at JBear67 who says, odds on Defoe coming back this summer?
The thing is, I mean, I love Jermaine Defoe. I still have the hope that in the last game of the season at Stamford Bridge, he can go and score the winner for Sunderland and allow mighty Spurs to lift the Premier League trophy. So I still have that vision in my mind that it still might happen. And I do love Jermaine Defoe. I think the thing is, it's not an age thing for me, because he's rolling back the years. You look at the players like Ryan Giggs, for example, playing well onto his 40s. I think Jermaine Defoe's fit enough to do all of that. I think the reason why maybe he won't come back is because of no one's going to get in front of Harry Kane in the team. The system that we play, unless Pochettino starts going 2 up, which he might well do. He's played it a couple of times this season with Janssen and Kane. But until he goes 2 up top, no one's going to get in front of Kane playing fully fit and so on and so forth. So you almost need a backup strike. And actually, you could argue that Jermaine might be that. But I still have faith in Janssen, to be fair. And we spent a lot of money on Son 2 years ago, and a lot of people were saying, maybe he ain't going to cut it. And now look at what Son's done this year. So I think a year under his belt in terms of Janssen for this season, I think he could fire on all cylinders next year. There's no doubt the guy's got quality. So I would probably say Defoe coming back is very, very short. It's not going to happen.
And we're going to bring the next question of the night to you, Seb. We've got Ronnie Dot at Ronnie Dot 58. This is a great question. If Gareth Bale was part of this team, would he have been so keen to join Real Madrid? I think it's a cracking question.
I'll say I think he still would have been because of his agent. Bale's agent is Jonathan Barnett, obviously, someone with a lot of, let's call it, ambition. And I think a lot of the appetite for that deal came from the agency. Bale as well. I mean, I don't know. I still think there's something about, with Bale particularly, there was something about Real Madrid. He was, weird as it sounds, he was a fan of Real Madrid from a boy. I'm not sure how that works growing up in Wales, but he wanted to play there. I don't think there was ever a point, even if we'd have won the title, I think he just still wanted that move. And also, I don't know. I mean, the Bale question is interesting. I don't know how effective Bale would ever have been in this for this Tottenham team, because for as long as he was at Spurs, the temptation was always to build the team around him. Quite rightly, because how could you not, really? And then Villas-Boas is absolutely right to do that. But I don't know. Very strange.
Let's flip the question. And let's, instead of if it had stayed, what about bringing him back?
Don't stop it.
And that's awful. Where would he get in now? I'm only joking, but who would you take out of that squad at the moment to put him in, Lee?
That Kane up top with them 3 people behind. I mean, you're talking interchanging with Bale, with Son, Eriksen, Dele Alli, Bale in there instead of Son. I mean, he's going to walk into the team. But now we've built what we've built without Bale. Imagine him back in.
It would be absolutely amazing. And Jace, going to go to you. Next question of the night. We've got here Daniel Brady at Daniel Brady 82. Now, I think we could have a whole separate subject on this question, because I know that's what it's going to cause. Daniel Levy probably doesn't get the praise he fully deserves. I don't know if we've got time for a discussion generally, but very quickly, Jace.
Well, I've always been pro Daniel Levy. Like any chairman, he's
not going to. Not everyone's going to love everyone, are they? That's just life. Isn't it?
No, of course you're not. And there will be times when you get things wrong, or someone will say, "Oh, you sacked the manager too quickly," or whatever. But when we look at some of the chairmen up and down the country that are literally in it for the money, and they have no affinity for the football club at all, we do know. I think every decision he's tried to make has been to benefit Tottenham. Now, you can argue whether that has been, but I mean, he's not been a Mike Ashley and done some stupid things.
No,
people will say, "Oh, he's sold our best players and he's taken the money," but when Real Madrid come in for 86 million quid for a player that wants to go, is that really down to Daniel Levy and the way that we've seen contracts in football go? I mean, even with Modric was down to 2 years. So if Daniel Levy doesn't take the money, he always said, didn't he, we will never allow a Sol Campbell situation again.
Yeah.
So you're stuck there. And if a player's not going to sign a contract, you have to sell him.
To his credit, Jace, very quickly, he hasn't allowed that, has he? With the squad he's got tied down, apart from Adolfo that we hear is ongoing, everyone is tied down long term.
No, exactly. I think if it's a popularity rating or a percentage rating for me, he's 75% in pro of Daniel Levy. And like I say, I think in that role, it's very hard to be 100% behind any chairman at any club.
Yeah, completely agree. And next question of the night is going to you, Ian. We've got a question here from Paolo Yuantasca at Piantos blog. I hope I pronounced your name right, Paolo. I try every week. He says, who has Tottenham's unsung hero been this season?
I'm going to say old Pochettino's right-hand man who got a right hook yesterday.
Oh, that was... Jesus Perez, that was brilliant. That was great.
But in all seriousness, I think the backroom staff have to take some credit. I was at one of the away games, and I think it was the Burnley game, and old Tony Jimenez was warming up Paul Lopez, and he gave him a right old mouthful for not getting down quick enough to a shot that nobody had an earthly of getting down to. I just think that we can't underestimate the work that those guys do, to be able to manifest itself into what we see on the actual playing pitch.
Let's go around the table. Players, lad. Lee, first to you. Player of the unsung hero this season?
I'd probably say the biggest mistake Pochettino's made this year is not playing Ben Davies as left back or left wing back in the semi-final, and I think Ben Davies has been an unsung hero. Danny Rose has been amazing, but Ben Davies, I think he's played really well. So from you looking at playing staff, although I do agree with what you're saying, Ian, to be honest, I think the backroom staff, their standards are so high that they're breathing a different mentality into Tottenham. That rot of it's just a classic Spurs, we're going to do it again. I mean, we've got a WhatsApp group going on with a few of my mates. A couple of seasons ago, it was entitled "Same Old Spurs" because you just think it was going to happen. Do you know what I mean? As Spurs fans, I think that mentality's changed. So I do agree with backroom staff, but playing staff, I'd say Ben Davies.
Ben Davies, fair enough. Seb, to you very quickly, unsung hero of the season.
I think Wanyama. I know, given what happened yesterday, it's not very unsung. But God, the guy has shown up in every big game we've played, and he's for £11 million. He's been absolutely brilliant, and also got a lot better throughout the season. He's not just a stopper at the back of the midfield. He's carrying the ball out the field. He's very progressive. He's been great. Really has.
11 million, frightening. And Jace, finally to you, unsung hero of the season, Jace.
Yeah, I think Wanyama for me. Is he unsung?
No, I didn't pick it.
Everyone's got to say it. Perhaps I will go Moussa Sissoko because nobody sees the Moussa Sissoko.
You're not having Moussa Sissoko.
You're not having Moussa Sissoko.
No, I still say that little 2-minute spell at Palace when he stood on the ball in the corner flag going nowhere. That was a turning point for our season. So I'll go Moussa Sissoko.
It was 3 important minutes, but I find it very hard we're going to buy that for the season. Let's go on to the next question. Let's go back round to you, Lee. Question here from Spiggy at Spiggy Tope, who says, compare another season at White Hart Lane to Wembley, potential dividend. And Dan also says, well, can we win the Premier next season, albeit at Wembley? This Wembley debate, Lee, where do you stand on the whole Wembley situation?
Difficult one. Some of the lads after the Chelsea game, they were like, what can we do? What can we change? And a lot of the response was, well, don't play at Wembley. I don't think it's easy to have a stigma attached to Wembley. Yeah. I think the reason why we struggle, Arsenal, to be fair to them, they had the same situation when they played their Champions League games back there when they were moved to that small stadium down the road. I don't know, to be honest. I think if we don't win something, I think it's going to be a tall order next year. I think Pep Guardiola's first season under his belt, I think Mourinho's going to have funds. Man City, us playing at Wembley, it is going to make it more difficult. We've all been down there, lads. It doesn't feel like White Hart Lane, does it? And I don't want the whole cliche of a night under the lights at White Hart Lane. But you've seen West Ham struggle at their new stadium. Yeah. You've seen Arsenal struggle at their new stadium when they were coming in. I'm not saying we struggle at our new stadium. I think to try and make Wembley at home, I think it's think it's hard work. Me and my boys were chatting about it yesterday. How many away fans are they going to let in? 9,000, 10,000?
This is it. And every team coming, Lee, are going to want to win. It's the national stadium, isn't it? Everyone's going to want to come there and get a result.
It's the best stadium in the world. Every single players want to come there and turn you over. They're going to raise their game by 10-15%. Half the time, it's probably why England have an issue. Yeah. So I don't think it is. I think it's a mentality, and I'll finish off by saying, if anyone can change the mentality and get the team playing the way they need to at Wembley, it'd be Pochettino.
And therefore, Lee, to answer that question, can he win the title there next season?
No.
There you go, the honest answer of Lee Mcqueen there. Final question of the night. It's an open question to you all, guys. This is from Alexander at Alexander Hill 22 and says, if the title is out of reach for Spurs this season, what is the next step for our club, and who can we lose and still maintain our progress? First to you on that, Seb. Big question, that one. Is it just the trophy we're missing now? Is that what you would argue as a Tottenham fan looking in, or even an outsider at Spurs? Great squad, great manager. He hasn't won anything yet, and neither has the majority of the players. That has to change, doesn't it?
I think it does. I don't think it's kind of like the magic bullet that it seems to be. I don't think, for instance, that sort of winning the FA Cup automatically translates to this magical winning mentality, because I think they've shown they've got a winning mentality already.
Yeah.
I think it's a few things, Ricky. I think like the games that have cost us, Chelsea at Wembley, ultimately that's about Chelsea being able to bring Hazard, Costa and Fabregas off their bench, and Pochettino looking around and seeing only Nkodu and Sissoko. It's a loaded game, and it's not just about who performs better and who has the best manager and the best 11 players. It's just we're not competing on an even field. So I don't think there's really an answer to that. As for who we can lose, I guess, I think I don't have any predictions for summer. I'm not knowledgeable about transfers in any way at all, and I don't know. I'm still at White Hart Lane yesterday mentally, so I'm not bothered yet. Not bothered.
Don't blame you. And Jace, very quickly to you on that one. Next step, I think we've spoken about this, isn't it? Some form of a trophy. I know you've, Jace, always said in the past, Champions League football. Let's get this regular.
To attract the talent we want and the big names, to keep them there. We all know that that's a financial decision. It's a boring few years for us, but I think it is down to, not to turn the top four into a trophy, but I think for a club like us
to play regularly at that level, Jace, is that what you're trying to do?
It is. And, all I've ever said with the trophy that people say, big players want to win big trophies. I think I said it last week. Berbatov and Keane won a trophy and have both gone within 4 months of winning it because they wanted Champions League football. Yeah. So for me, the trophy's a nice thing, but if we're building towards winning this title, I think it's more important to build the whole philosophy of that club, and one FA Cup won't just make it easier for us to win a league title.
Yeah, completely agree. Let's talk about trophies. We're going to come on to West Ham's biggest trophy of the season they're looking for, a win against Spurs. Ian, starting with you. The game coming up next Friday. How big is that for West Ham? Again, we had the same thing with Arsenal, trying to stop Spurs, potentially win a title. That's their motivation. Can we overcome it?
In a word, yes. Why not? I'm talking to some West Ham fans at work, and they're just hoping it's not going to be embarrassing. So I just think that if we take our performance, on yesterday into the game on Friday night, then I'm expecting the same sort of result for us.
Yeah, fingers crossed. And Seb, bringing it to you, West Ham have had a bit of an average season, really. Haven't really done much. Went out the Cups quite early. They've found it very difficult, this transition across the London Stadium. How much can that benefit us? Because their form there hasn't been that great. And I think last season, when we look back at places that we slipped up along the way, Upton Park was one of them. They'll be up for it, won't they, next Friday? But it's a place, really, we should be good enough to go and get a result.
Yeah, I think so. I think there's a lot of problems with West Ham. The stadium, obviously, one of them. They're not comfortable there, but also their recruitment over the last couple of years has been absolutely hopeless. And, I think their ownership has to take a lot of responsibility for that. And also, let's not forget that sort of the team that beat us last year will be missing Payet, of course, but also Mikel Antonio. And you take those two players out of that team, and it's not really the same, and it hasn't been since Payet left. There's no logical reason why. West Ham fans can hope that it's not going to get embarrassing. There's no logical reason why it won't be, because they're not really equipped in any way, like, you know, tactically or with their personnel, to cope with any, forget Spurs, to cope really with any side that are performing at a high level. They don't have that kind of cohesion. They don't have the kind of whatever voodoo existed at Upton Park. Yeah, I mean, it's really about matching their effort in the first 20 minutes and then going from there. Because they will. It is.
They're going to be up for all that, Seb. Like you said, they're going to be up for it.
It's their season, and now it's their season. I mean, I'm not trying to be patronising, but it is. It's the only thing they've got left to play for.
Yeah.
So, you know, just match them 20 minutes and then, you know, turn it into a football match rather than the kind of, just chest thumping, spoiling kind of party.
I agree. Pochettino says we're in the race for the title. We reduced the gap to Chelsea. We have an important game against West Ham and we have to focus on that. Lee, it sounds like to me Pochettino isn't giving up this title, rightly so. The West Ham game is pivotal in that. In your opinion, just how crucial is this one?
No, it's crucial. We've got to win the game. I just want to touch on something. Just a quick question before I answer that.
Yeah.
Mikel Antonio, is he right-sided?
What, as in actually right-footed?
Yeah, I'm just thinking I'll walk a 50 million to Man City with snap up Antonio. Do you know what I mean?
Antonio's going to leave West Ham in the summer by all accounts, but for the amount of money they'll ask for him, I mean, he's a kind of, goodness, let him go to Everton.
I bet would they I think the last place they're going to sell us is to Spurs, isn't it? I might be wrong.
No, exactly. And I don't think there's kind of, like, he's a very useful player. He's very, very good in the air. But as a technical footballer, I don't think he belongs in a Pochettino team. I don't think he gets anywhere near it. I
don't even know if he's right-sided or not, to be fair. So I know, but I just thought he scored a few goals, didn't he, from playing full-back. Plays up the park as well on the right wing or on the left wing. Yeah. So I just thought I'd find it out there. So is this a pivotal game, Ricky? Absolutely. It's a big game. We've got to win the our last 4 games. You know, Chelsea have only got to win 3 more games out of their 4 and they win the title. So, you know, we wanted Everton to do us a favour. It didn't. They got Middlesbrough on Monday. Psychologically, I think Pochettino said it this week, if we can beat West Ham, which I think we will, comfortably, like you lads have already said, if we can beat West Ham, we go 1 point behind, and you never know. I mean, Middlesbrough have picked up, right? They've got a point against City as well. They are still fighting, so who knows? But I do still think we're in the title race. I think it's really important. I think we only need 1 more point, do we not, lads, to guarantee second place, don't we?
I think you're right. I think it's 1 point to guarantee second. Champions League is all done bar a ridiculous goal swing. Just Lee, very quickly, from a psychological perspective, should we get that win at West Ham, the pressure then goes back on Chelsea. I mean, they've got so many winners in that team. Is that going to mentally affect them at all? They've got Borough on the Monday night.
I want to be disrespectful to the teams, you know, the Boroughs, and they've got to play Borough, Watford, Sunderland, and West Brom, right? And 3 of them games home. I think the West Brom game's away. Yeah. I don't want to be disrespectful to them, but Watford are playing for nothing. They're still losing to Liverpool. West Brom are playing for nothing. Yeah. Sunderland are down, so they might have a bit of freedom. Middlesbrough are fighting. You know, now any given fixture list, if we said, let's be brutally honest, Chelsea are playing them 4 teams, you're going to give Chelsea 12 points in you. And I know the game's not played on paper and so on and so forth. So I'm not sure psychologically, you know, if they were playing maybe the Everton game afterwards away with a 1 point difference, maybe that might be slightly different. But Borough at home should be comfortable for them. All we can do, like Pochettino's been saying the whole time, I agree.
Yeah, keep winning.
We've got to keep winning, and that's what we're doing.
Yeah, we are just keeping winning. And Jace, bringing it to you, you think Chelsea are going to win all their games remaining? And I think you said Spurs, you can see, is there any potential slip up in there for you that you're concerned about? Is this one of those games you're worried about, or not necessarily this one? Maybe the Man United?
West Ham as such doesn't worry me too much at all. I think, you know, what they said about it's right. They look such a poorly disorganised side. They look a side so flat. And I know people will say, well, they'll be up for it. But I think, you know, when a team can get up for a game, if it's had a 2 or 3 bad weeks is one thing, but when they've had 30 bad weeks, effectively, and they're so flat, I mean, you can't just go from being 4 out of 10 every week to suddenly get all 11 of them playing at 7, 8 out of 10, which is what they need to be doing. Yep. So, no, I'm not, you know, don't give away a stupid free kick and let Andy Carroll bully you at the back. And other than that, as you say, with Antonio missing, with Payet missing, you know, Lanzini can hit those nice set pieces. So that's the one area that maybe can hurt us. And, you know, just don't allow them to build up any pressure. And I think we will be quite comfortable over there. Yeah,
fingers crossed. Ian, prediction for you?
I think that we'll go there and we'll get another 2-0 win. Easy. And like I've said before, my favourite term about football and title races is mathematics. I just think Hull away on the last game of the season will still have a significance.
There you go.
So that's my prediction.
There you go. Mystic Meg over here. Ian thinks there's still hope left in the old horse yet. Seb, prediction for you?
4-0 Spurs.
4-0. God, there is confidence.
Yeah.
Bloody hell.
Yeah.
Lee, is it going to be a trouncing? What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with Seb. I think it'd be 4-0.
Jace, prediction for you?
3-0 Tottenham.
3-0.
Comfortable as hell. And I have to say, I think anyone listening back to last week, did I say 2-0 and Ali and Kane to score?
I think you did. I think you called it.
Finally got one right. The
He
first
He got one right, Lee. He finally called it.
Finally got one.
It's taken game 33, but we finally got there. I'm going to go for, I think like you boys have said, Lee and Seb and Ian, I think it could be a trounce, and I'm also going to go 3-0 Spurs. I think we can get the result. Guys, I want to say sorry we haven't got through all the listener questions tonight. The listener questions will be answered as always by Jason. You can catch those on our e-Spurs page of @e_Spurs. Feel free to get into us on a weekly basis. You can do that again by tweeting the pod. If you like what you hear, feel free to drop us a review over YouTube, over Twitter and any other platform. Lee, it's been an absolute pleasure having you for tonight. I hope you've enjoyed it.
Cheers, Ricky. Cheers, lads. Absolutely. I'll just go one last prediction, if I may.
Please do. Go for it.
I think we're going to win the title, lads.
Oh, there we go. I've been told
Balls
off.
out.
I've been told off, Lee. I've been told off for saying that. Seb, thank you so much for rejoining us tonight.
Absolute pleasure, Ricky.
Oh, brilliant. And Jace, thank you as always.
Good to speak again.
Oh, of course. And Ian, thank you for coming back on the show.
It's been an absolute pleasure to come back on, lads, and have a good one next time.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Guys, we're going to be back after the West Ham game when hopefully we're talking about another win in a London derby. All that left to be said is, come on, you Spurs!
I suppose